Hello, bedtime thinkers, and welcome to the Bedtime Discoveries. I'm so glad you are here with me tonight. This is a space where science and calmness meet, where curiosity drifts gently into dreams. Tonight, we will take a quiet journey into something very close to us all, something inside every cell of our bodies. We will explore DNA, often called the language of life. It is a story written in tiny letters, a code that shapes every living thing. So, let's close our eyes, relax our breathing, and slowly discover the gentle poetry of DNA. Before we begin, I would love to know where you are listening from. If you feel comfortable, please comment your location and the time of night or day where you are. It is always wonderful to imagine this calm circle of listeners spread all across the world. And if you enjoy these soft journeys, please remember to like this video and subscribe to the Bedtime Discoveries. It helps us grow this little corner of peace, and it means the world to me. Imagine if you would open a vast library, shelves stretching endlessly in every direction, and on those shelves were books filled with instructions for how to build every living creature on Earth. Some books would be for tall trees, some for tiny insects, some for gentle birds, and some for human beings. Now imagine that this library doesn't exist in some distant place, but rather inside of you, inside each of your cells, tucked away safely, lies a blueprint, a quiet set of instructions, written in a language so small that it cannot be seen with the eye alone. This is DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. It is the most extraordinary book ever written, and it is being written not with ink and paper, but with molecules and chemical bonds. When people say that DNA is the blueprint of life, they are speaking of its role as a guide, just as an architect's blueprint tells builders how to create a house. DNA tells the cell how to create a body. It provides the instructions, the measurements, the order in which things should be placed, and even the variations that make each house unique. Without DNA, a cell would not know how to build itself, how to divide, how to repair, or how to live. It is as though each of your trillions of cells carries within it a complete instruction manual for making you. Pause for a moment and consider that every single cell in your body, from the ones in your skin to the ones in your heart to the ones in your eyes, holds a copy of the same blueprint. Tiny, compact, folded neatly, yet so powerful. It is almost poetic to think that within something so small lies the story of who you are. To truly understand DNA as a blueprint, we might take a gentle walk through history. For centuries, scientists wondered what was it that carried the instructions of life. In the 1800s, a monk named Gregor Mendel studied pea plants, carefully observing how traits passed from one generation to the next. He noticed patterns: round peas, wrinkled peas, tall plants, short plants. He could predict these patterns, but he could not yet see the blueprint behind them. Mendel had found the rules of inheritance, but the language itself was still hidden. Later, in the late 19th century, scientists peering into cells noticed thread-like structures. These were chromosomes, and they seemed to be linked to heredity. But still, the true script remained mysterious. It wasn't until the mid-20th century when a series of discoveries revealed that DNA, not proteins, not other substances, was a true carrier of genetic information. In 1944, Oswald Avery and his colleagues provided strong evidence that DNA was the molecule of inheritance. Their work was careful, quiet, and revolutionary. And then, In 1953, James Watson and Francis Crick, with help from Rosalind Franklin's brilliant X-ray diffraction images, uncovered the shape of DNA, the double helix. It was as though a lock had been opened, and the blueprint inside was revealed. This discovery changed everything. No longer was DNA a hidden mystery. It became the central script of biology. It was clear now that within this molecule was written the code for all of life. When we think of DNA as a blueprint, we are not simply using a metaphor. We are acknowledging that inside the spiral of molecules lies precise, organized, detailed instruction. It is not random. It is structured. It is purposeful. Let us now imagine how this blueprint quietly works inside us. Picture a single cell, perhaps in the early stage of an embryo. It is small, delicate, and yet it holds within it the instructions for building an entire human being. How does it know what to do? It turns to its DNA. The DNA blueprint tells the cell when to divide, when to specialize, when to form skin, when to form neurons, when to grow bones. Every moment, it is as though the cell is reading a script, following a plan, step by step. The beauty of this blueprint is that it is both universal and personal. Universal, because all humans share about 99.9% of their DNA. Personal, because in the tiny fraction that differs lies the uniqueness of each individual. The shape of your face, the sound of your voice, the rhythm of your heartbeat are all guided by subtle variations in your DNA. And yet, the blueprint is not rigid. It is flexible. It responds to the environment, to signals, to experiences. Much like a house that can be decorated in countless ways, the DNA blueprint provides a structure, while life adds the finishing touches. One might imagine DNA as a quiet architect, sitting in the background, never seen, yet always guiding construction. It does not shout. It does not rush. It simply provides instructions, clear, steady, and timeless. And perhaps what is most soothing to think about is that this blueprint is ancient. Your DNA is not just yours. It is the product of countless generations before you. It carries echoes of your parents, your grandparents, and ancestors stretching back through time. It is a blueprint written not in a single lifetime, but across millions of years of evolution. Inside you, this blueprint whispers the story of life. Not just your life, but the life of your species, and the life of all creatures on Earth. When you breathe in, when you close your eyes, when you drift gently towards sleep, remember that within you is the most beautiful instruction manual ever created. A blueprint, ancient and wise, written in the smallest of letters, but telling the largest of stories. If we could take a magical journey, deep inside a cell, smaller than sight can follow, we would come across one of the most elegant shapes in the natural world. It is delicate, twisting, winding like two ribbons gently wrapped around one another. This shape is the double helix. The double helix is the form that DNA takes, and it is not only beautiful, but deeply practical. It is a structure that protects information, allows it to be copied, and makes it accessible when needed. Imagine a staircase, a spiral staircase that winds upward with two sturdy rails, and connecting steps in the middle. The rails are made of sugar and phosphate molecules, firm and protective. The steps are the nitrogen bases, the letters of life, linking the two sides together. This spiral staircase is not just a design. It is a solution. If DNA were stretched out in a straight line, it would be fragile and difficult to store. But by coiling into the double helix, it becomes compact, resilient, and ready to carry life's most precious instructions. The beauty of the double helix lies also in its symmetry. One strand runs upward, the other downward, like partners in a dance, moving in opposite directions, yet always bound together. It is balance. It is harmony. It is life, written in structure. Pause with me for a moment and imagine the spiral, not just as a scientific shape, but as a symbol. The double helix is a symbol of connection, of two parts coming together to hold something greater. It is the embrace of molecules and the embrace of life itself. For centuries, scientists wonder how the blueprint of life was stored. They cannot see DNA directly, but they knew something was there. The journey toward the double helix is a story of curiosity, persistence, and quiet brilliance. In the 1940s and 1950s, researchers were searching for the answer. What was the true carrier of genetic information? Proteins were considered strong candidates because they were complex and diverse. DNA, with only 4 repeating letters, seemed too simple. And yet, hidden in that simplicity was the greatest code of all. A key piece of the puzzle came from Rosalind Franklin, a scientist with extraordinary skill in X-ray crystallography. She directed beams of X-rays at purified DNA fibers and captured the patterns that emerged. Her famous Photo 51 revealed a distinct X-shaped pattern, the signature of a helix. It was a moment of quiet revelation. James Watson and Francis Crick, working in Cambridge, pieced together the clues. They built models, twisting wires and metal plates, until finally, in 1953, the double helix emerged before them. 2 strands, winding together, with bases pairing in the middle, A with T, C with G. It was not only a discovery of structure, but of meaning. The double helix explained how DNA could replicate, how it could store information, and how it could endure through generations. When the discovery was published, the scientific world changed overnight. No longer was DNA an abstract chemical. It was now a living script with a shape that carried elegance and order. And though history often remembers Watson and Crick, the story is incomplete without Rosalind Franklin. Her careful images, her quiet brilliance, were central to revealing the helix. The double helix, like life itself, is the work of many hands, many minds, coming together. As you listen, perhaps you can picture that moment of discovery, the hush in the laboratory, the soft scratch of pencils on paper, the gentle turning of a model, until suddenly the spiral comes into view, a shape that would forever symbolize the language of life. The double helix is not just a beautiful design. It is an active participant in life. When a cell needs to copy its DNA, the helix gently unwinds. The 2 strands separate, like the opening of a zipper, and each strand becomes a guide, a template for building its partner anew. In this way, the double helix ensures accuracy, balance, and continuity. The spiral form also allows DNA to be compacted into chromosomes. Without this elegant folding, the DNA in a single human cell would stretch to nearly 2 meters in length. But the helix coils upon itself again and again, fitting perfectly into the nucleus, as though nature were an expert in origami. And yet, when needed, the helix can loosen, open, and allow specific genes to be read. It is both tightly packed and gently accessible, a balance between order and flexibility. Perhaps what is most soothing to reflect upon is that the double helix is universal. Every creature with DNA, from the tiniest bacterium to the tallest giraffe, shares a spiral form. It is as though nature chose a single elegant design and carried it across the entire tree of life. When you imagine the double helix, picture it not only as a molecule, but as a symbol of unity. Two strands, intertwined, inseparable, carrying the story of existence. It is the quiet spiral that connects us all. And so, the double helix is more than structure. It is beauty, it is memory, it is balance, a staircase of life, winding upward into history, downward into ancestry, and outward into the endless diversity of living things. As you breathe softly now, you might let the image of the helix drift in your mind, a spiral, turning gently, endlessly, like a ribbon floating in calm air, a symbol of order, of continuity, and of the poetry within every cell of your body. If we think of DNA as a grand story, then it is written in the simplest of alphabets, only 4 letters, and yet with them, life is written every chapter, every species, every individual. These 4 letters are A, T, C, and G. They stand for adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. To the eye, they are just symbols, but in reality, they are chemical bases, small molecules that carry the weight of life's instructions. Imagine if the entire library of the world, with all its books, all its languages, all its stories, were written using only 4 characters. It would seem impossible, and yet DNA does exactly this. The way these 4 letters are arranged, the sequences they form, creates meaning, just as letters form words, and words form sentences. So too do A, T, C, and G combine into genes, into instructions, into the architecture of life. There's also a rule, a gentle order that governs their pairing. A always pairs with T, and C always pairs with G. Like partners in a dance, they move only with one another, never breaking their quiet loyalty. This pairing is what holds the double helix together, step by step, like rungs of a staircase. And so, while there are only 4 letters, their combinations are limitless. The human genome, for example, is made of about 3 billion letters, 3 billion steps, one after the other, forming the complete manual for building a human being. Pause for a moment and let that sink in. For simple letters, arranged in different orders, hold the instructions to your eyes, your hands, your heartbeat, your memories, a story written not in ink, but in molecules within every cell. It may be soothing to imagine how these letters tell stories, not in the way novels do, but in the way instructions quietly guide creation. For example, the color of your hair, the shape of your face, the way your body responds to sunlight, are all coded by specific sequences of these letters. A slight change in the order, perhaps one letter switched with another, and the result may be different hair color or a new shade in the eyes. Think of it like spelling. The words cat and cut differ by only one letter, yet their meanings are entirely different. In the same way, DNA letters, when rearranged even slightly, can create new instructions. This is why DNA is sometimes compared to language. It has an alphabet, rules, grammar, and meaning, but unlike spoken language, DNA does not need sound. Its words are built into the chemistry of life itself. Scientists have learned to read these sequences, like archaeologists uncovering ancient texts. By decoding the letters, they can trace ancestry, discover hidden connections, and understand the origins of health and illness. In fact, the Human Genome Project, completed in the early 2000s, was one of humanity's greatest explorations. It was not a journey across oceans, but across molecules. Scientists mapped all 3 billion letters of human DNA, laying out the alphabet life, letter by letter, sequence by sequence. And though the project was completed, the story is still being interpreted. Much like a book written in an ancient language, we know the letters, we see the sequences, but the full meaning, the deeper poetry, is still being uncovered. What is most beautiful is how universal this alphabet is. The same letters, the same rules, appear in every creature on Earth. From tiny bacteria, to blooming flowers, to soaring birds, to human beings, all are written in A, T, C, and G. Pause with that thought, that the butterfly outside your window, the oak tree standing tall, and you share the same alphabet. Life is varied in form, but united in letters. It is natural to marvel at how something so simple can give rise to something so vast. Consider music. There are only a handful of notes, and yet, with those notes, humans have composed symphonies, lullabies, and songs that span cultures and centuries. Consider colors. There are only 3 primary colors, and yet, with their blending, we see every shade in the world, from the soft blue of dawn to the deep gold of sunset. DNA's 4 letters are like these notes, like these colors. From simplicity comes infinite complexity. Every time a cell divides, these letters are carefully copied, preserving the instructions. Every time a protein is built, the letters are read, 3 at a time, forming a word, a codon. Each codon instructs which building block to use, which piece of the puzzle to place, until the protein is complete. This process is precise, elegant, and yet forgiving. Errors are rare, but when they occur, they may create something new, a slight shift, a gentle change, and life experiments with variation. Sometimes these changes fade, sometimes they blossom into new traits, new possibilities. The poetry of DNA's letters is not only in what they build, but in how they remind us of life's unity. When you look at the stars, when you listen to the sea, when you feel the rhythm of your own breathing, remember that within all of it, there is a shared script for letters endlessly rearranged, endlessly unfold into the story of life. And perhaps what is most calming is knowing that this alphabet, though invisible, is always present. Inside you, inside me, inside every living thing. It is a whisper, a thread, a gentle hum of existence. So tonight, as you rest, let the thought drift through your mind that life, in all its beauty and variety, is written with only 4 letters, A, T, C, and G, the simplest alphabet, holding the most profound meaning. One of the quiet wonders of DNA is its ability to make copies of itself. This process, known as replication, ensures that when one cell becomes 2, each new cell carries the same instructions. It is the way life preserves its story, passing it forward generation after generation. Imagine a beloved book, written with care and passed down through families. If the book were to wear out or become torn, it would need to be copied, word for word, to keep the story alive. DNA does the same, but it does so with such precision that the copy is nearly identical to the original. In every human body, this quiet copying is happening constantly. Trillions of cells divide, and each one must faithfully reproduce its DNA. If stretched out, the DNA in a single cell would be nearly 2 meters long, and yet the cell replicates it perfectly, folding it back into its nucleus. Replication begins with a gentle unwinding. The double helix, that elegant spiral staircase, opens up the bonds between the paired letters. O with T, C with G, loosen and separate. Like the unzipping of a zipper, the two strands drift apart. Now, each strand becomes a template. The cell brings in free-floating letters, matching with T and C with G to build two new strands. In this way, each half of the original DNA becomes a guide for building its partner. Two new helices form, each identical to the original. Pause for a moment and reflect on how remarkable this is. A molecule not only stores information, but knows how to copy itself. It is as though the book of life contains instructions for rewriting itself whenever needed. Replication is not only about growth, but also about healing. When your skin repairs after a cut, when your body renews its tissues, DNA replication is quietly at work, restoring what is lost, preserving what is essential. It is a process so delicate, so precise, and yet it happens constantly, without pause, without fail. The silent hum of replication is the heartbeat of life itself. To understand how DNA replicates, let us imagine the cell as a tiny workshop. Inside, specialized tools and helpers move with purpose, each with a role to play. First comes the enzyme helicase. It acts like careful hands, gently unwinding the helix, separating the two strands. The strands, once bound tightly together, now drift apart, ready to be copied. Next, single-strand binding proteins arrive. They act like guardians, keeping the separated strands from tangling, holding them steady until the new strands can be built. Then comes the star of the process, DNA polymerase. This enzyme is like a skilled scribe, moving along each strand, reading the letters, and bringing in the correct partner. If it sees an A, it places AT. If it sees AC, it places AG. Letter by letter, step by step, it builds a new strand. But even scribes need a starting point. Here enters primase, an enzyme that lays down a small starting sequence, a primer. It is like writing the first word on a blank page, giving the polymerase a point from which to continue. On one side, the copying is smooth and continuous, called the leading strand. On the other side, it happens in small fragments, called the lagging strand. These fragments, known as Okazaki fragments, are later joined together by yet another enzyme, DNA ligase. It is as though one side of the book is written in flowing sentences, while the other is written in short notes, pieced together into a complete story. And finally, proofreaders arrive. DNA polymerase itself checks its work, correcting mistakes. If a wrong letter is placed, it is removed and replaced, ensuring accuracy. The entire process is astonishingly precise. Out of billions of letters copied, only a handful of errors may occur, and even those are often repaired. It is a level of accuracy far beyond any human machine, and yet it happens in silence, in darkness, inside every cell. Scientists often marvel at how the cell orchestrates this process. So many players, so many steps, yet all moving in harmony. It is like a quiet symphony, each enzyme playing its part, until the copy is complete. And when it is done, two identical helices rest side by side, ready to be folded, stored, and passed on. Replication is not just a biological process. It is a story of continuity. It is the reason children resemble their parents, the reason species endure through time. Every copy of DNA is a bridge between past and future, carrying the memory of life forward. Think of a family recipe, written down on paper, passed from one generation to the next. Each person makes a copy, preserving the instructions, perhaps adding small touches, but keeping the essence the same. DNA replication is this idea magnified to the scale of life itself. Without replication, there could be no inheritance, no growth, no repair. A single cell could never become an embryo. An embryo could never become a child, and life could not flow across generations. And yet, replication is also creative. Though it strives for accuracy, sometimes small changes slip through. These tiny variations, mutations, add new letters to the story. Some fade away, some cause difficulties, and some open doors to new possibilities. It is through these variations that evolution finds its path. What is most calming to reflect on is how steady replication is. While we live our lives, breathe, dream, and sleep, our cells are quietly at work, copying, repairing, preserving. It is an invisible rhythm, a gentle tide that carries life forward. When you close your eyes tonight, you might imagine the DNA within you, strands unwinding, letters being paired, copies being made. It is not loud or frantic, but calm, steady, and purposeful, a process that began billions of years ago and continues without pause in you and in every living thing. The poetry of replication is the poetry of endurance. It is life saying, I will continue. It is the whisper of the past, promising a future. And so, DNA replication is more than chemistry. It is a quiet miracle of persistence, the unfolding of time, the guarantee that the story of life will not be lost. DNA is often described as a book of life. But like any book, it is not simply a jumble of letters. The letters must be arranged, forming words, phrases, and sentences. In the grand script of DNA, these sentences are what we call genes. A gene is a section of DNA that carries instructions for building something specific. Most often, that something is a protein, one of the essential builders and workers of the body. Each gene is like a sentence in the code, conveying meaning, directing action, shaping the living organism. To picture it, imagine a vast library filled with endless strings of letters. Most of the letters might seem random, but every so often you find a sentence that makes sense, that gives a clear instruction. That is a gene. It has a beginning, a message, and an end. The discovery of genes was a milestone in science. For centuries, people wondered, why do children resemble their parents? How do traits, like eye color or height, pass from one generation to the next? The answer lay in these hidden sentences, tucked within the DNA. Gregor Mendel, the quiet monk who studied peas in his garden, first uncovered the rules of inheritance. He noticed how certain traits appeared, disappeared, and reappeared in patterns. Though he never saw DNA itself, he had glimpsed the footprints of genes. Later, as the structure of DNA was revealed, scientists began to see how those patterns worked. Genes, they realized, are the fundamental units of heredity. They are the carriers of traits, the sentences that describe how life should grow, function, and survive. Think of your favorite lullaby, passed from parent to child. Each note is familiar, each word carefully remembered. Genes are like those lullabies, carried quietly across generations, shaping lives in ways both visible and hidden. In the human genome, there are about 20,000 genes. Each one is a sentence, some short, some long, each contributing to the vast story of who we are. Together, they form the great anthology of life. But genes are not isolated. They work together, like sentences forming paragraphs, paragraphs forming chapters. The book of DNA is not a simple list of instructions, but a flowing narrative full of complexity, nuance, and meaning. When we reflect on genes, we reflect on the poetry of biology. They are not merely codes of chemistry, but sentences that carry memory, inheritance, and possibility. To understand genes, we must ask, how do these silent sentences become the living body? How does a line of DNA turn into the color of an eye, the shape of a hand, the sound of a voice? The answer lies in the way genes are read. When a gene is needed, the cell makes a copy of it, not in DNA, but in a messenger called RNA. This process is called transcription, as though the sentence is being copied from one language into another. The RNA carries a message out of the DNA's safe library into the wider cell, where the instructions can be followed. Their machines called ribosomes read the RNA letter by letter, 3 letters at a time. Each triplet of letters, called a codon, specifies a particular amino acid, the building block of proteins. And so, codon by codon, amino acids are assembled, forming a chain, folding into a unique shape, becoming a protein. This is called translation, the turning of the gene sentence into the language of life itself. Imagine a recipe written in a family cookbook. The words on the page do not feed you directly, but when someone reads them aloud, gathers the ingredients, and follows the steps, a meal is created. Genes are like that recipe. The sentence is written in DNA, copied into RNA, and then translated into the meal, the protein, that nourishes the body. Some genes are like simple sentences, directing the making of a single small protein. Others are like complex paragraphs, controlling when, where, and how proteins are made. Together, they orchestrate the development of the body, from the first cell of the embryo to the intricate being that grows and lives. What makes this process so wondrous is its precision. A cell can choose which genes to read and which to keep silent. A heart cell reads the genes needed for pumping blood, but keeps silent those for making bone. A neuron reads the genes for signaling, but not for digesting food. It is as though the same book is read in many ways, each reader choosing the sentences that matter most. And so, the body emerges not from random chemistry, but from the careful reading of genetic sentences. Each cell is like a reader, interpreting the code, bringing meaning to the silent words. In this way, genes speak. They speak in proteins, in shapes, in functions. They speak in the rhythm of the heartbeat, in the sparkle of the eye, in the whisper of thought. When we step back and reflect on genes, we see more than instructions. We see the poetry of continuity and the wonder of expression. Genes are the reason a child's smile may resemble a parent's, or why a grandparent's voice seems to echo in a grandchild. They carry not only traits, but the deep memory of ancestry. They are the sentences that connect past and future, weaving generations together. But genes are not destiny alone. They are possibilities shaped by the environment, by experience, by chance. A sentence may be written, but how it is read, when it is spoken, and what meaning it carries can all vary. Think of a song. The notes on the page remain the same, but each performance is unique. One singer may sing it softly, another with power. One may sing it in joy, another in sorrow. Genes are like those notes, and life is a performance. This is why even identical twins, who share the same genetic sentences, are not truly identical. The world shapes them, their choices shape them, and the subtle variations of life make their stories diverge. There is also poetry in the way genes can be silent for generations and then suddenly express themselves. A hidden trait may skip a parent and appear in a child. It is as though the sentence was whispered long ago, then carried quietly, waiting for the right moment to be spoken again. And so, when we think of genes as sentences in the code, we see both their strength and their subtlety. Their instructions, but also possibilities. They are anchors, but also wings. They bind us to our ancestry, yet open us to new futures. Above all, genes remind us of the shared language of life, whether in a tree, a bird, or a human being. The sentences are written in the same alphabet, the same code. It is a universal language, one that speaks a connection, of unity, of the oneness of living things. And as you rest and listen, you might imagine the quiet sentences within you, written long before your birth, and carried now in every cell. They whisper softly, shaping you, guiding you, continuing the story of life. If DNA is the library of life, then proteins are the builders who carry out its instructions. Every structure, every function, every quiet process within you depends on proteins. Think of them as tiny craftsmen, each with a special skill. Some are builders, forming bones, muscles, and skin. Some are messengers, carrying signals from one part of the body to another. Some are protectors, defending you from illness. Others are caretakers, repairing damage, keeping the body in balance. The word protein comes from the Greek proteos, meaning of prime importance. And truly, they are. Without proteins, DNA would remain a silent script, never spoken, never enacted. It is the proteins that bring the code to life. Proteins are made of smaller units, called amino acids. There are 20 kinds of amino acids, like 20 building blocks, or 20 different colors of thread. By stringing them together in different orders, the cell can weave millions of unique proteins. Picture a long chain of beads. Each bead is an amino acid, and the sequence of beads determines the chain's character. But it doesn't stay a simple chain. The beads twist, fold, and curl until they form a three-dimensional shape perfectly suited to its job. Shape is everything. A protein that carries oxygen, like hemoglobin in your blood, has a pocket just the right size to hold oxygen molecules. A protein that breaks down food, like an enzyme, has a groove shaped exactly for the substance it must cut. Each protein's form is the secret to its function. The variety is astonishing. Some proteins are as strong as steel, forming the fibers of your hair. Some are as delicate as whispers, carrying signals across the brain. Some work for only a few seconds, others endure for years. And all of this begins with DNA's instructions. The gene is copied, the message is sent, the protein is built, and the cell comes alive. So when we call proteins the builders of the body, we are speaking not only of physical structure, but of every quiet act that makes life possible. They are builders, yes, but also caretakers, messengers, defenders, and creators. They are the artisans of existence. Let us now drift more deeply into the many roles proteins play. Imagine the body as a great city. In this city, proteins are everywhere, each with a job to do. Some are like the architects designing the structures. Collagen, for example, is a protein that builds a framework of skin, bones, and tendons. It gives strength, resilience, and shape. Without collagen, the city would crumble. Some proteins are the movers, the transporters. Hemoglobin, found in red blood cells, carries oxygen from the lungs to every corner of the body. Without it, the city would suffocate. Others are the defenders, the guardians of the gates. Antibodies are proteins that recognize invaders like bacteria and viruses, binding to them, marking them for destruction. They are the city's watchmen, always alert, always ready. Then there are the messengers. Hormones such as insulin are proteins, carrying signals that regulate energy, growth, and balance. They are like letters delivered across the city, ensuring that every part knows what to do. Enzymes, perhaps the most remarkable of all, are the city's workers. They speed up chemical reactions, making life possible in real time. Without enzymes, even the simplest processes would take years instead of seconds. Every time you digest food, every time your muscles contract, enzymes are at work, tirelessly, invisibly. Proteins also serve as repair crews. When damage occurs, proteins rush to mend what is broken, patching, rebuilding, restoring balance. It is a quiet miracle happening constantly within you, even as you rest. The variety of their work is breathtaking. Each protein, with its unique shape, carries out a task no other can do, and together they sustain the living city of your body. When you pause to breathe, when you close your eyes, when you drift towards sleep, it is proteins that keep the city running, without noise, without pause, without fail. As we reflect on proteins, we see not only their work, but the harmony they create. Every protein is unique, yet none works alone. Like musicians in an orchestra, they play together, each part contributing to the symphony of life. The enzymes break down food, releasing energy. Transport proteins carry that energy where it is needed. Structural proteins build the framework. Messenger proteins guide the timing. Defender proteins protect against harm. And together, they keep the body alive, balanced, and whole. This harmony is not rigid, but flexible. Proteins can adapt, change, shift their roles. They respond to the environment, to diet, to stress, to healing. They are both strong and gentle, precise and adaptable. In their unity, there is resilience. If one path is blocked, another protein may step in, offering a different route. If one defender falters, others rise to guard the body. Life is not fragile notes scattered in the wind, but a woven fabric of proteins, strong and interconnected. And in this harmony, we glimpse beauty, for though proteins are chemical machines, their work creates all that we recognize as life. The beating heart, the growing child, the healing wound, the fleeting thought, all are born from their quiet labor. As you drift towards sleep, it may be soothing to imagine them at work. Tiny builders, tireless and devoted, tending to every detail, repairing what is worn, protecting what is fragile, balancing what is delicate. And though we rarely notice them, proteins never cease their work. Day and night, waking and sleeping, they build, defend, and sustain. So tonight, let your mind rest in the thought that within you, countless proteins are weaving the fabric of life, invisible intricate, harmonious. They are the builders, the guardians, the caretakers of your body. And in their quiet labor, they keep the story of life unfolding gently, endlessly, beautifully. In the quiet library of DNA, where letters line up in endless sequences, there are times when the script changes. A single letter may shift, a sentence may alter, a page may rearrange. These changes are called mutations. At first, the word mutation may sound unsettling, but in truth, mutations are a natural part of life. They are simply small changes in the DNA sequence. Sometimes they are silent, having no effect at all. Sometimes they bring about differences, subtle or significant. And sometimes they open the door to something entirely new. Mutations can happen in many ways. They may occur during DNA replication. When a cell copies its code, the process is remarkably accurate. But with billions of letters to copy, an occasional slip is inevitable. A single base may be added, or missed, or replaced with another. This is like a typo in the script, a letter out of place. Other mutations are caused by the environment, radiation from sunlight, chemicals in the air or water. Even certain foods and habits can nudge the letters of DNA, altering their arrangement. Life is constantly writing, erasing, and rewriting its script. Most mutations are neutral, neither harmful nor helpful. They are quiet variations, passing unnoticed. Some may be harmful, leading to illness, disrupting the harmony of the body. Yet others may be beneficial, creating traits that help a species survive, adapt, and flourish. So when we think of mutations, we should not see them only as errors, but as variations in life's ongoing story. They are the sparks of diversity, the seeds of evolution, the hidden whispers of change. And perhaps most beautifully, mutations remind us that the script of life is not frozen. It is alive, dynamic, ever-changing. Each change, no matter how small, contributes to the endless unfolding of the story. To understand mutations more deeply, let us wander gently through their effects. Some mutations are simple substitutions. One letter in the DNA code is swapped for another. This may be like changing the word cat to bat. The meaning shifts slightly, sometimes with no consequence, sometimes with great significance. Other mutations involve insertions or deletions. A letter may be added or removed, shifting the entire sentence. In the language of DNA, where letters are read 3 at a time, this shift is dramatic. It changes not just one word, but every word that follows. Imagine removing one note from a melody and hearing the entire song change. There are also larger mutations, where entire sections of DNA are rearranged. Pages of the book may be duplicated, inverted, or moved to another chapter. These changes can alter the story profoundly, giving rise to new forms, or disrupting old ones. In the human body, some mutations lead to illness. For example, sickle cell anemia arises from a single letter change in the gene for hemoglobin. That small shift alters the shape of red blood cells, changing the way they move and carry oxygen. It is a vivid reminder of how even the tiniest change can ripple outward into life itself. And yet, that very mutation also provides resistance to malaria, showing the dual nature of change. What is harmful in one context may be helpful in another. Life balances on such delicate edges, where even errors may bring hidden gifts. Other mutations are more subtle, shaping the variety we see around us. The color of a flower, the pattern on a butterfly's wing, the texture of a fruit. These may all arise from small changes in DNA. The world's beauty, its endless diversity, owes much to these quiet variations. Without mutations, there would be no evolution, no adaptation, no new forms of life. Species will remain fixed, unable to adjust to changing environments. It is through mutations, tested by time and nature, that life explores new possibilities. So when we think of mutations, let us see them not only as flaws, but as experiments. Life is always experimenting, always trying new variations, always seeking balance between stability and change. If we step back, we can see mutations as part of greater poetry. They are not random mistakes alone, but strokes in a painting, notes in a symphony, variations in a theme. Every human being alive today carries countless mutations, some inherited from ancestors, some newly formed. They make us unique, distinct, individual. No two people carry exactly the same script, not even identical twins. Think of freckles on the skin, the curl of hair, the subtle differences in voice and laughter. These, too, may trace back to mutations, small shifts in the code. They are reminders that imperfection, variation, and change are woven into the fabric of life. Even the greatest transitions in Earth's history are tied to mutations. The rise of new species, the ability to breathe oxygen, the blossoming of flowers, the expansion of the human brain, all were shaped by tiny changes in DNA, carried forward through time. Mutations, then, are not only agents of risk, but of possibility. They hold within them both fragility and creativity. They show us that life is not a rigid script, but an improvisation unfolding in real time. And so, as you rest tonight, you might imagine a quiet script within you, shifting softly, letter by letter. Most changes go unnoticed. Some fade away, some linger, but together they carry the story of humanity forward. In the stillness, mutations remind us of the beauty of change, that nothing is fixed forever, that life is always in motion, always writing, rewriting, and reimagining itself. They are the tiny sparks, the whispers of difference, the gentle currents of possibility. And in their quiet work, the story of life continues to unfold. Every living thing on earth, from the smallest bacterium to the tallest tree, from the bird in the sky to the child at play, carries within it the same mysterious thread, DNA. It is humbling to realize that this single molecule unites all of life. The same alphabet of A, T, C, and G writes the instructions for creatures of every shape and size. The same rules of pairing, the same double helix, spin through every living cell. Consider the diversity of life. The shimmering scales of a fish, the silent growth of a mushroom, the roar of a lion, the whisper of a leaf in the wind. All of these begin with DNA's letters. It is a shared script for which every living story is told. For humans, this connection is especially meaningful. When scientists first studied DNA from different species, they found not separation, but similarity. A large portion of human DNA is shared with chimpanzees, but also with mice, even with bananas. Though we seem so different, beneath the surface, we are made of the same senses. Think of it like music. Every culture has its own melodies, yet all are built on the same notes. DNA is like that universal scale from which every song of life is composed. This shared language tells us something profound, that life, in all its forms, is not isolated. It is connected, woven together by a single thread stretching across billions of years. So whether we gaze a forest or a coral reef, or the night sky filled with wings of migrating birds, we are looking at variations of the same living code, different in appearance, but united in origin. If all life shares DNA, why is life so diverse? The answer lies not in the letters themselves, but in how they are arranged. Picture a library where every book is written with the same alphabet. One book becomes a novel, another a poem, another a play. The alphabet is shared, but the stories are unique. So too with DNA. Humans, whales, butterflies, and oak trees all use the same 4 letters, but the sequence, the length, the chapters written differ from one species to another. Some organisms have tiny genomes, just enough sentences to survive. Others, like certain plants, have enormous genomes filled with long, winding passages. Yet size does not always equal complexity. It is not how long the book is, but how the sentences are arranged, how they are read. Within this variation lies both beauty and resilience. A small change in script may give one plant resistance to drought, while another learns to thrive in shade. A small shift may help one bird fly farther, or give another brighter feathers. This diversity is the strength of life. It allows species to adapt, to explore new environments, to survive change. And though the stories differ, the alphabet remains the same. Perhaps the most moving example is in the connection between humans and other animals. When scientists study human DNA, they often compare it with other species. In doing so, they find not only differences, but deep similarities. The genes that guide the beating of a human heart are strikingly similar to those in a mouse. The genes that shape vision in humans echo in the eyes of fruit flies. It is as though life reuses its favorite sentences, refining them, adapting them, carrying them forward across time. And so, even in the smallest insect, we may glimpse a reflection of ourselves. When we see DNA as a shared language of life, a sense of unity emerges. The divisions we often imagine between species, between plants and animals, even between humans themselves, fade in the face of this truth. Beneath it all, we are written in the same script. This unity is both scientific and poetic. Scientifically, it tells us of a common ancestry. Billions of years ago, the first living cell emerged on Earth, carrying DNA. From that single origin, every form of life unfolded, branching, diversifying, yet always carrying the thread forward. Poetically, it reminds us of connection, that the tree outside your window, the bird nesting in its branches, and you yourself are relatives, distant cousins in the vast family of life. We share not only the planet, but the very code of being. And in this unity lies responsibility. For when we harm the natural world, we harm a part of ourselves. When we protect it, we honor the shared story we all carry. Imagine standing in a forest at night, the air cool and still. Around you are countless forms of life, insects in the grass, owls in the branches, roots stretching beneath the soil. All of them, like you, are written in DNA. All of them, like you, are participants in the same unfolding narrative. There is comfort in this thought, that you are not alone, but part of a vast chorus, that your body, your mind, your breath are linked to every living thing by an invisible thread. So as you rest, let yourself feel the quiet connection to all of life, from the smallest bacterium to the tallest tree, from the songbird's call to human heart. The same script flows through us all. DNA is not only the language of life, but the language of unity. And in that unity, we find belonging, continuity, and peace. Evolution is the grand, unbroken story of life adapting, changing, and unfolding across billions of years. And at the heart of that story lies DNA. Every time DNA is copied, whether in a human cell, a bird's feather, or a seed about to sprout, there is a chance for small changes. Sometimes these changes are mistakes, tiny shifts in the letters. At other times, they are reshufflings or additions or losses. Most changes are silent. They pass quietly, unnoticed, like edits that change nothing in the meaning of a sentence. But every so often, a change matters. It may make a creature better suited to its surroundings, or it may make survival harder. Over time, across countless generations, these changes accumulate. Those that help life survive are carried forward, shaping the future. Those that do not fade away. This is the essence of evolution, DNA carrying the record of the past, while also shaping the possibilities of tomorrow. Consider the finches on the Galapagos Islands. Each species has a beak suited to its food. Some are sharp for cracking seeds, others slender for probing flowers. These differences trace back to small changes in DNA, carried and refined across generations. Now imagine this process stretched not over decades, but millions of years. Tiny shifts in DNA lead to vast changes in life's forms. Creatures that once swam in the sea rise to walk on land. Creatures that once crawled lift into the air on wings. All of it written step by step in DNA's endless story. So when we speak of evolution, we are really speaking of DNA as both archive and artist. It preserves a record of what was, and it sketches the blueprint of what might be. One of the most fascinating aspects of DNA is how it holds echoes of the past. In every cell of your body, there are clues that link you to ancient ancestors. For instance, scientists have discovered genes in humans that are nearly identical to those in distant animals. There are stretches of DNA we share with fish, with frogs, even with single-celled organisms that lived long before plants or animals existed. It is as though our DNA is a palimpsest, a manuscript written over and over, but never fully erased. Beneath the surface lie the faded traces of earlier chapters. Some of these traces serve no current purpose. They're like quiet footnotes, remnants of long-forgotten adaptations. Scientists call them junk DNA, though more and more, they are discovering that even these sections may whisper hidden roles. Others are active, still shaping who we are. The genes that guide the building of a human embryo, for instance, are ancient. They are related to the genes that shape the growth of insects and worms. The same deep instructions, reused and refined across the tree of life. Even more remarkable are the discoveries of interwoven DNA from species now extinct. Within our genome, fragments remain from Neanderthals and Denisovans, our ancient cousins. These fragments affect us still, influencing traits such as how we respond to altitude or to disease. So when we look at DNA, we are not just seeing a present-day code. We are gazing into a mirror of the past, a history book written in chemical letters, telling the tale of life's long journey. It means that evolution is not only out there in the distant fossil record, it is inside us, in every cell, reminding us of where we came from and how deeply we are linked to the entire history of life. If DNA records the past, it also guides the future. Every living thing today is part of an ongoing experiment in adaptation. As environments change with shifting climates, rising seas, or new diseases, species must adapt or vanish. Once again, DNA is at the center. A single mutation in a virus, for instance, can alter its spread. A tiny change in a plant's DNA can allow it to withstand drought, helping it thrive while others fail. Humans, too, continue to evolve. Though our technology and culture shape us greatly, our DNA still shifts with time. Traits that help us survive may grow more common, others may fade. And in today's world, something new is happening. For the first time, humans can read DNA directly. We can compare the genomes of species, trace their histories, and even edit their letters. Tools like CRISPR allow scientists to alter DNA with precision once unimaginable. This raises questions, both exciting and unsettling. Will we use this power to cure diseases, to protect endangered species, to heal? Or will we risk reshaping life in ways we cannot fully predict? In this sense, DNA and evolution are no longer only natural processes, they are also choices guided by human hands. And so, the story of evolution enters a new chapter. Yet even with all our knowledge, the deeper mystery remains. DNA is a molecule, but it is also a storyteller. It carries the history of life, shapes the present, and whispers possibilities of the future. To close this reflection, imagine once more the vastness of time, billions of years, countless generations, endless branching paths, from the first simple cells to the forests, oceans, and human beings alive today, all of it carried forward by DNA. When you breathe, when you dream, when you rest, you are part of that story. You are living evidence of DNA and evolution, continuing their quiet, unbroken work. So let yourself sink into peace, knowing that you, in your very cells, are the outcome of life's long journey. You are part of a story that began long before you were born and will continue long after. A story written in the language of life, through DNA, through evolution, forever unfolding. DNA, the language of life, has revealed so many answers. It has shown us how living things are built, how they grow, how they adapt, and how they are connected. But for every answer, it also leaves us with new questions. What lies beyond our current understanding? Why this particular code and not another? How did the very first DNA-like molecule arise from the chaos of early Earth? Scientists have uncovered many possibilities. Some believe simple molecules once floated in ancient oceans, joined together under the spark of lightning or the warmth of volcanic vents. Others imagine that the building blocks of DNA arrived on Earth carried by comets or meteorites drifting from the far reaches of space. Yet, the mystery remains. We can describe what DNA does, how it works, even how to edit it. But the why, the deeper reason why this particular molecule became the script for life, remains unknown. And perhaps that is part of its beauty. That life keeps secrets, not to frustrate us, but to remind us that mystery itself is sacred. When you close your eyes tonight, think of this. Inside every cell of your body, DNA is busy, endlessly copied, endlessly read, endlessly guiding. And yet, the origin of that code is a riddle we still cannot solve. This sense of not knowing does not bring fear, but wonder. It invites us to marvel, to stay humble, to dream of what lies ahead. As humans, we now stand at a threshold. For the first time, we can not only read DNA, but also rewrite it. With technologies like sequencing, we can map the genomes of species across the planet. We can uncover lost histories, trace migrations, reveal ancient connections. We can even bring back voices of the past through fragments of DNA preserved in bones, in ice, in soil. At the same time, with tools like CRISPR, we can edit DNA's letters with astonishing precision. We are beginning to cure diseases once thought incurable. We are learning to strengthen crops against hunger and drought. We are exploring the possibility of protecting endangered animals by restoring lost genes. But with these powers come questions. What does it mean to change the script of life? How far should we go? And how do we balance curiosity, compassion, and caution? The mystery ahead is not only scientific, but ethical, spiritual, human. It is not only about what DNA can do, but about what we choose to let it do. Perhaps the truest discovery ahead will not only be in the lab, but within ourselves, in learning to honor the code of life, not simply as data, but as something alive, sacred, deserving of care. So the future of DNA is not only about control, it is also about respect. Respect for the mystery, for the beauty of diversity, and for the deep thread that connects us to every other being. At the end of this journey, through DNA's story, we arrive at a gentle truth. That life is not something to be fully solved, like a puzzle with one right answer. It is something to be experienced, to be cherished, to be marveled at. Even if we were to map every gene, sequence every species, understand every pathway, there would still be questions left. Questions about consciousness, about meaning, about why anything exists at all. DNA can tell us how we are built, but not why we dream. It can tell us where we come from, but not why we long for connection, for love, for wonder. And maybe that is the greatest mystery ahead, that science and spirit, knowledge and wonder are two hands of the same body. One explains, the other inspires. Together, they guide us gently forward. So as you rest now, know that you are part of this unfolding story. You are not separate from the mystery. You are the mystery, carried in cells, in breath, in thought. Your DNA connects you to every human, every animal, every tree, every star-born fragment of life. It is the bridge between past and future, between the known and the unknown, between the finite and the infinite. So close your eyes and let yourself drift into the embrace of the mystery ahead. It will hold you just as it holds all life. It will guide you just as it has always guided life. It will whisper to you softly, gently, like a lullaby carried across time. And now, dear listener, our journey through DNA, the language of life, comes to a gentle close. We have wandered together through its blueprints, its double helix, its letters, its replications, its stories of genes and proteins, its whispers of mutations and evolution, and finally into the open mystery ahead. As you prepare for rest, may your heart feel light, your breath steady, your dreams filled with wonder. May the quiet knowledge of connection bring you peace. And may you awaken refreshed, carrying with you the gentle reminder that you are part of life's great story. So now, let me wish you blessings, calmness, and serenity. Good night, dear listener. Good night and goodbye.